So I play Magic the Gathering all the time, and I'm going to use that term lightly because I play it badly. I play Arena all the time, and we're not going to talk about that. But we are going to talk about the fact that on my search, but I was always interested. I'm the person who always reads the little lore on the bottom of the cards, and I'm trying to, picture the story and what happened. And I wanted to know more, so I thought, why not read the books? Even though I've heard there's so many red flags about people trying to tell me about how bad they are. When I went on eBay, I know there's a million of them, but when I went on eBay, is that ridiculous or what? So I skipped that. I had to skip it. And my dumbass actually bought 2 copies of this book. Okay. We're not going to talk about that either. Yeah. This book used to go for $4.99, and now people are selling it for ridiculous prices. The date on this book is 1995. We have to remember the time period that it was written in. I knew I was in trouble when I started talking about bladders. I mean, it's not a bad book, and I strongly believe there's no such thing as bad books. As I read, I had to constantly remind myself of the time period it was written in, and I think that gives it a lot of more leeway. The times were really different back then, especially when it comes to fantasy novels. Everybody was into the 80s party, the D&D thing. I enjoyed the random adventure aspect, especially when it slows down and starts focusing on the characters. Even the part about his sister being a simpleton. I love stories about siblings, and Gull's drive to keep his sister protected was one of the driving forces. What I don't like is how Gull, our main character, is supposed to be this random farm boy who's never left his simple village, right? I mean, they wake up every day, they chop some wood, and they milk some cows. I don't know. But he can fight a whole trained brigade of soldiers by himself, powerful wizards, cataclysmic beings, and still win, and all with a bad knee. I looked forward to knowing more about the magic world, but it felt to me like one of those random episodes you turn on in the morning at 3 a.m. and you don't know what's going on, but you're just too tired to change the channel. It kind of reminds me of those old Goosebump books that you used to buy when you were a kid and you thought nobody else knew about it, but you had like a really cool, fun thing going on here that never seems to end. I mean, it's just dumb fun, and there's nothing bad about that. Just don't go in expecting Shakespeare, and you'll be okay. I mean, I like the characters at their core, who they are, basically. Their personalities. Each character had a different vibe, a different goal. And they don't just all team up and say, let's go. The only thing that kind of peeved me while I was reading it is the whole 80s, 90s obsession with the women. Every threat is like sexual assault, and I'm kind of over it. Why do they never threaten the guys with sexual assault? I mean, why is that the only thing you can think of? Why don't you just beat the hell out of her, I mean, why is it always sexual assault? I can't count the number of times on both hands that somebody's threatened to assault somebody. And the premise of this is basically a small villager gets roped into traveling with a wizard and his caravan of, like, gypsies. And throughout the book, they get drawn into multiple wizard battles. Wizards are the classic archetype where they like to stay recluse and they work solitary. But they're also kind of weird, everything's about power and knowledge to them, but they're stingy about it. I actually think the action was the worst of all. It goes by really fast. For Magic the Gathering, I mean, I guess we don't picture ourselves as playing the game like they would, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Status, here's a card, monster, clash. No. It's basically what happens in here, except it's not cards. I found myself actually skimming towards the end, and I never do that, because I cared more about what the characters were doing and progressing more than the battles. I love the idea of wizards fighting back and forth, summoning things, and, drawing on power, but it didn't, something was off about it. I don't know. It was like there wasn't really any suspense to it. It's like, oh, here's a giant. Oh, yeah? Well, here's a hydra. Oh, yeah? Earthquake. And our characters are just stuck in the middle of all this. And what's worse is the next time they get into another battle, they proceed to use the same exact spells. I know there's only so many cards in a deck, right? And I believe our wizard here uses blue magic, so he's up with the, protection, and I think also black, because they go through a swamp. Swamp is black, so we're going to say black. The funnest part for me was actually trying to recognize the classic cards that they were playing. Like, they had Nightmare, they had the Giant Badger, the Fungasaur, and they even gave a shout out to, like, the craze of the Black Lotus. I chuckled. And there was a little bit of explanation about the lore, but just the basic stuff we already knew. Like, they physically have to travel over the land that they want to draw the mana from, so that's why he's traveling. Like, say, if he's all tapped out from his previous battle, he has to go to a desert. He has to go to a swamp area and literally soak up more swamp mana. A wizard's life seems fun, though pretentious. And I did enjoy traveling with Towser. Or is it Tozer? I know he was meant to be a douche because our main character doesn't like wizards, so they automatically get placed as, like, this douchebag. But he just minded his own business, and I don't blame him. I don't want to say I know he's being judgy about, like, oh, he's just a stupid boy who don't even know how to read, but reality, it's really none of his business. He only wanted to hire him as a guard, and his sister has an important part to play in this, and why he's there, but we're not gonna get into that. It was kind of predictable the whole time. Predictable about his sister. And I like that. I do like that everything was done as a step towards something else later on. It wasn't just from one next to the other. The whole book sounds like it's written towards an 8th grade audience. That's what I was thinking while I was reading it, that it has to be aimed towards high schoolers. High school boys, probably. But at the same time, it's meant to be like a high school or like a child book, but it's got adult themes in it, like sex, sexual assault. So I'm a bit confused about the target audience, but I think it was just around that time when people still thought it was, like, nerdy or uncool to play card games. So I'm glad we are out of that period. Something good about it is you don't have to know much. You can, just the basic about the game. It's its own story. Like, it doesn't leave you confused about just random name drops and stuff. It's their own characters and their own story just in the Magic world, which it's good if I wanted just to jump in and read a random adventure, it's good for that. But it's not going to turn me off from continuing. I want to go on, and I want to see especially the difference between then and the more modern ones like now. And there's no sense in these costing so much. Like I said, it's not a bad book. I guess maybe because I was expecting way worse, but as just a random standalone adventure, it's not that bad. But it's written, you have to turn off your mind, and you can't look at, like, prose and words and all of that. Just read the book and finish the book. That's all you can do. So that's it. I'm going to file that away, and next I'm going to continue. Luckily, they're quick reads, though. Like, a couple hours. So this will be done in no time, and we'll see if it gets any better. That's it. Till next time, I guess.